Hello and welcome to the Surgical Spirit podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Haidar Al-Hakim, the Third Eye Doctor. Pull up a chair and get ready for some candid and uncompromising discussion with experts, innovators, agitators, and influential people from every corner of health and well-being. From inside the hospital to at home in the kitchen, we're leaving no stone unturned in our quest to uncover the secrets of healthier, happier, more successful, and less stressful lives. Thank you so much for joining us, and without further ado, let's meet this episode's guest. Hello, Emil. How are you?
Hello. I am very, very well. Thank you.
Well, it's a real pleasure having you on the show, and you know I love it when I have celebrities on, and you're a celebrity, mate.
Oh well, in internet pseudo celebrity on Instagram one time, sort of.
How did it happen? How did your sort of celebrity thing happen?
It was back when Instagram was easier to hack. It was back in 2015. Basically, I was finishing my anaesthetic core training, and I decided I wanted to leave medicine to pursue a career in fitness. And to do that, I figured that people listen if you have abs. So I went on a mission to get abs, and I competed as a bodybuilder. And during that time, it was a little bit less, what's the word? It was less saturated. Mm. So I had a story. It was a little bit unique. I got ripped, and I was putting a lot of content out on Instagram regularly and consistently. So the following shot up while I was competing. 20,000 or whatever on Instagram is not... It doesn't do anything these days, but back then it was quite nice. It was quite interesting.
Was it sort of more male, female who are following you because of those abs?
You know what? It's that standard gym thing. It's mainly male.
Yeah. Like
it's, when you go into the gym, it's like, oh, looking great there, bro. All that kind of stuff. So, people do this. They get into, the whole gym sport abs thing. They're like, oh, I want to do it so girls, think I look good or whatever. Girls don't care. Ultimate secret, girls don't care. It's for the other bros, and ultimately it's for yourself. Yeah. I've all throughout my life have been lots of different shapes, lots of different sizes, done lots of different sports, and every time the only consistent feature was everyone was saying, you look fine now, you shouldn't change. And when you hear that for the 12th or 13th time, you're like, maybe no one cares. So you're doing it for yourself. Like, don't kid yourself. You might start thinking I want to look sexy, but very quickly you need to bring that motivation internally, otherwise it'll fizzle out.
Yeah, I mean it's sort of strange that you do so much for other people that you don't really know at all, and it sort of consumes you inside.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of the things that most people do a lot of the time, if you really really boil down to it, are because of external influences. Whether it's an increase in status, whether it's to gain admiration or acceptance from certain people, family, parents, other medical professionals, whatever. If you boil it down, if you keep digging, that's ultimately what it comes to. And being a doctor is a prime example, because a lot of people get into being a doctor for a variety of reasons.
Yeah. So what happened recently, Emil? You were going to mention something that happened recently.
Continuing on from that. So I got into medicine because of my dad. When I was 16, my dad said to me, you should be a doctor. My dad's an anaesthetist, consultant anaesthetist. He said to me, you should be a doctor. And at 16, I was like, yeah, that sounds pretty good. I quite like science. I quite like people. I'm quite good at exams. Let's do this. My whole life is sorted. I pretty much don't need to think anymore. I just need to keep passing exams. And I was good at that. So at 16, I did my GCSEs, did my A-levels. They were all fine. Got into med school and just kept passing everything I needed to pass. I was very good at that. And then it was only literally 2014, 2015 where I stopped enjoying it. And you know what? Before that, I was enjoying it. I absolutely loved it. So, there's no regret or anything about that, but something changed. And what I realized recently was that I was doing one of the bigger influences for me, consciously or subconsciously, was that I was doing it because my dad said, and nothing like, he twisted my arm or anything like that. Like, I did it off my own back, but that was a huge influence. And then since I've left, I've always been trying to sort of succeed and prove that I've been successful, to prove that my choices are the correct choices, to prove that I haven't squandered what I've done. So recently I kind of came to realize that was one of my prime motivators. And now what I'm really working with is trying to turn that around and do it for me, which is a tiny, subtle point. But you know what? It changes everything. It changes from constantly trying to, please people and do more and be more and earn more, to switching it around and saying, I am enough, and now I will do what I want to do and succeed.
So back in 2014, when you said this is enough for me, was there a particular incident, or did something happen, a particular story?
Yeah, interesting that you picked up on that. Yeah, I mean, it was clearly brewing for a period, and certainly fitness was an undercurrent for me for my whole life. Through university I worked as a fitness professional in a gym. I did a sports science degree as an intercalated degree, so I was always working, competing in fitness. And then obviously when I qualified, I that took a back seat. And then I was loving anesthetics. Literally, it was my, I got really stuck into the exams, was doing those early, loving it. And then it kind of started to sort of fall apart at the seams. And it was then speaking to one of the bosses, one of the consultants, and them sort of saying that, they've got they're consultants, they've got this private gig going alongside it, so they're earning crazy amounts of money, and they're still unhappy with what they're doing. And for me, I was like, this is my goal, this is what I'm aspiring to be, and I don't think it's what I want. And for me, that was enough. As I said, just before we started, my goal is to wake up every morning excited. Like, I see no reason why that should be a ridiculous, desire. I want to wake up and I want to be excited about the day ahead. And while I want, CT1 and CT2 for the first part, I was genuinely excited to go to work, learn more stuff, put people to sleep, do the emergencies. I loved it. And then it stopped. And when it stopped, I was like, right, I need a get out plan. And within 8 months, I'd finished core training and I was out, basically.
Was it difficult just to sort of walk away like that?
You know what? The NHS is not built for doctors to leave. It's a conveyor belt. And that was what appealed to me at 16, because I jumped on the conveyor belt at 16 and I didn't have to think anymore. I just sat there,
Everything was done for you.
Pretty much. When you need to apply for a new job, they email you. They tell you, you need to apply for a new job, click this button. You just have to pick specialties and things, and even that is kind of you steer towards that. So, and in the standard kind of, I suppose, doctor way, I still did the exams I was supposed to do. I still had a backup plan, and when I left core training, the plan initially, which I think is why I accepted it, was I would take 12 months, I would locum, and then I could always go back if I wanted to, which is the kind of the trick I was telling myself to reassure myself that what I was doing was okay. So, I minimized all my outgoings. I booked locums as soon as I finished. I had saved up some money, did everything to secure it. And then I started off as a fitness coach, and I was locuming, and that was 3 years ago. And every day which passed since I left secured the fact that I was never going back to training.
I mean, looking back sort of 3 or 4 years ago and where you are now, do you think you would have done it differently? Would you just sort of jumped straight in and not left those strands of sort of ropes of coming back?
You know what? I'm still locuming now, and I'm hearing different opinions within the business world, because basically the last 3 years has been a crash course in business. have known nothing about business, and I never had a reason to. So these last 3 years have been a crash course. And what being a doctor and locuming has meant was that there was never a sense of urgency, because I was always making good money. So that's a double-edged sword in itself, because on the one hand, I'm comfortable. I don't need to, I don't desperately need to make money from fitness so I can cruise. But on the other hand, I'm comfortable and I can cruise, so I don't need to desperately make money from fitness. So, there's no sense of urgency. So interestingly now, as it comes to 3 years, I've got my reappraisal meeting on literally a week Monday. I revalidated for the first time out of training last year, and this is my next cycle. And I've got shifts in September, and then from October onwards, I'm out of the country. I'm traveling. I'm away. So I've still given myself a backup, like I can travel for 12 months and still revalidate, but I truly believe that with 12 months of just focused business, I possibly won't.
Yeah, I mean, you've got such an immense old head on young shoulders, I think. That's something that's really impressed me. And some people just sort of take the plunge and sort of get into trouble and then work their way through it. And I think it's... this sort of slowly methodical process, I think that's something that's part of you, in essence, I think.
So I've had advice both ways. I've had advice saying you need to drop your safety net to get the incentive to fly. And then I've also had advice saying, no, you really don't need to crash and burn before you can succeed. You use your safety net, take full advantage. And you know what? Fundamentally, I enjoy my day-to-day. I enjoy what I'm doing. And if, as a worst case scenario, I keep doing what I'm doing now for the next 40 years, that's fine. That's fine. I want to progress. I want to keep doing more. I want to keep pushing for greater things. But I mean, ultimately, in the last 12 months, I've been away every single month, sometimes twice. I'm off to Croatia tomorrow. I'm off to the States later on in September. Like, I'm fine, But
it's working for you.
It's working for me, exactly. It's just I'm also wary of resting on my laurels and getting too comfortable, because I can't remember the quote. Comfort is the biggest enemy of dreams, or something like that. So
I mean, most medics are sort of restless, and I think that's one of the biggest cause of sort of burnout. It's sort of between restlessness and overworking and not finding the sweet spot. I like to use the word sweet spot rather than balance. I'm not a fan of that balance word, the B word. I'm interested in the book that you wrote, because that's a very methodical book, and it's a very I like the pictures, because you look like Hercules in those in that book.
I mean, interestingly, so the book is about high intensity functional training, and it's effectively a literature review of the literature on high intensity functional training, and its part in body composition and fat loss. And one of the reviews on Amazon was, there's nothing new in it. And I was kind of like, literally by definition, it's a review of the past literature. There's nothing new in it. I could have told you that. That's literally what it is. It's not telling you to do anything. It's not saying that this is the new plan which is going to change your life. It's literally a lit review, like when you write for university, and presented in such a way. And the workouts in it are taken from papers. It's not anything new, but that's what I wanted it to be. It was the evidence for HIIT training related to body composition. HIIT training is often used for fitness and whatever else, but so we renamed it HIFT, high intensity functional training, and skewed it to body composition as a very, very efficient way of doing it. You know what, since I left medicine, I've done so many weird and wonderful things, you know, been in the process of setting up gyms, been part of a clothing company, written a book, you know, been part of a nutrition coaching company. And I always say to myself, worst case scenario, I've got a hell of a story to tell my grandkids, you know.
Wow, yeah. And sort of what's been the most exciting part of all these different sort of facets of your work? What really sort of comes out?
It's the total variety and total chaos that of this lifestyle. I mean, you know, people talk about getting into routines and stuff. I've been so far from a routine since I left. I couldn't tell you what I was doing next week, and no 2 weeks have looked the same. I live 4 weeks in advance. You know, when I go traveling, 4 weeks is when I book flights. I've not booked flights to go to the States in 2 weeks. You know, that kind of level of organization, because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know the dates. So that in itself, the total crazy variety, you know, shooting in different countries, shooting in costumes, shooting in different cities, doing videos, as I said, writing books, working with different people, meetings, conferences, lectures, talking, just, you know, it's been a hell of an adventure. Competing, you know, it's just
and it's
crazy.
Quite interesting how things just fall into place. You know, you think it's sort of chaos, but it's actually order.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? Chaos isn't a negative thing, and it's something that is present and unavoidable, and it's a case of embracing it. And I suppose once you embrace it, it becomes order.
Yeah, but, you know, we have just so limited knowledge about, you know, the wider aspects of this nature and you know, this universe. I mean, even just the body, we're sort of still a bit dumbfounded and you know, still arguing about different organs in the body, you know, let alone order and chaos and sort of the way the universe works, which is quite mind-boggling. And I think once you sort of tune yourself into that, you kind of let go.
And that's the key, is letting go and not building up this tension about things that you can't control, things that don't matter. Just let go. And that's, I think, you know, bringing it back to burnout, a big issue with burnout is people, they get tense, they get het up about a lot of different things, and most of them can be processed and almost removed from the equation. But especially in medicine, we just get hammered by so many things all of the time that it's difficult to, and we take on more stuff all the time, and it's difficult to rationalize it and focus, I suppose.
Yeah, and being in an environment where everyone else is in that frame of mind, it's actually very difficult to get out of it. How do you think you got out of that frame of mind? What was it that got you out of that boxed mind?
I think the freedom of you know, as I said, I came off a conveyor belt where everything was set out for me, and you know, whatever choices I made, they kind of led to a similar kind of place. Whereas it was kind of discovering the greater world. It was like, wow, I can, you know, do anything, be anything. I can do whatever I want tomorrow. I don't have to go to work. I don't have to do anything. And I think once you get to that, you kind of get overwhelmed, and then you're almost forced to rationalize, because otherwise you will break. And you know what, I've you know, I'm not ashamed to admit, I've broken a few times in the last 3 years of just sheer, you know, overwhelm, doubt, whatever else, and you know, total, like, just a mess of a human. Multiple times, but I don't regret it. I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't, you know, it was all part of the process and entirely required.
So when you're in that position, what did you do to get out of it and sort of find sanity again?
I mean, I suppose having an overarching direction, and I don't like the word goal per se, because goals tend to change. Or you achieve them. I don't know which is worse. But having a direction, having a purpose, and having a reason means that little setbacks, little things, they're okay, because you can almost justify them, because it's fine, because you're still aiming for a greater purpose. But more recently, the big thing which I've come to sort of realize and learn is that it's not about the goal, it's not about the direction, it's about the day-to-day, the process. And if you love the process, if you enjoy the process, then you might still become overwhelmed and break down, but you can learn from it, and you can improve, and you can get back on track, because you fundamentally love the process.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm a fan of Gary Vaynerchuk, and he loves the grind. He
loves it.
Essentially, he loves working 20 hours a day and seeing his family 1 or 2 hours a day, and the rest of the time, he burns out daily, but he loves that process. And it's sort of going back to those, we can call them micro goals, just to get you back onto sort of the right direction. For me, the thing that gets me back is reading philosophy, and just sort of reading particularly the the old philosophers, and increasing my perspective and my broad awareness of what's going on. That kind of grounds me and brings me back after I've gone off and associated with the mind. Now, you read a lot of books, sort of your Instagram's full of really interesting books. Where did that come from?
I don't know where it came from. I think I've always, when I was young, I used to read loads, sit down and read the encyclopedia, standard, kind of geeky little kid thing. And then, got too busy, or whatever that means, being a doctor and whatever else, and then hustling and, the grind for the last couple of years. And then I met a few people who sort of talked about that kind of classic cliche of entrepreneurs reading a book a day or a book a week or whatever. And I was like, well, these guys are super successful. Let's try and implement that. And every book that I've read has given me so much that it is a travesty that I'm not reading more. So despite me fitting in reading and learning to every second of my day, it's still not enough. I've got Audible, so I'm listening to books whenever I drive. I've managed to get up to times 2.5, times 3 speed. Wow. Like crazy. And you know what? If it accidentally slows down to normal speed, they sound drunk. They sound slurred. I'm like, I can't comprehend this. But so that's Audible, and then I've got Blinkist, which is 15-minute book reviews.
Okay. Does that work? Is that helpful?
It's a nice adjunct, if I find a book which I really like. So I've got these books in my head which I really want to read, and those I'm going to do properly on Audible or hard copy. But the ones where I don't know, then I'll listen to them on Blinkist, and then they'll give me the idea is that a book has one concept really, and the rest of it is fluff to make it publishable, to make it sellable. So if you can grasp that one concept, you've got the book. Like if you're reading a book and you feel you've got it, just stop. You don't have to finish the book. Same with Blinkist. If you get that core concept, then you're good, you're done. And all of my posting about books, and I do a lot of sort of behind the scenes summarizing them, trying to crystallize them, not only into what the book is trying to tell me, but fundamentally what I can implement from the book, because otherwise it's just pleasant ideas, and everyone reads all these books. But if everyone read, How to Become a Millionaire, and everyone was a millionaire, then it wouldn't. That's not what happens. So it's not about just reading the books; it's about taking something away and actually doing something about it. So that's where all my sort of posting and other stuff comes from. So the more I read, the more I want to read, the more I realize there is to learn. And yeah, my Audible is crazy. I keep having to buy extra credits because there's just so many books I want to read.
I mean, I buy books, but I don't actually listen to them. It just sort of gets bigger and bigger. It's like, oh yes. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you do need actionable steps afterwards, and that's something that a lot of people know about, and it's sort of they just it just doesn't happen. And do you have any tips for that? People actually actioning.
I mean, it's a difficult one, but they say that knowing something and not actioning it is worse than not knowing it.
Oh dear.
So, because if you don't know it, at least you can claim ignorance. But if you know it and you're not doing it, then there's something else. There's some other disconnect. So, I mean, for me, it's just constant evaluation, reevaluation, self-reflection, and everything has to kind of come into the structure of goals and direction. Like, there's nothing wrong with setting goals. I have no objection to that. So long-term goals, 5, 10 years, 3 years, 1 year, months, whatever. But the further away the goals are, the more they're going to change, the vaguer they're going to be. And you have to remember that they're only ever going to give you a direction. But once you've got that direction, then whatever you read in a book, you can work out how to slot that in to what you're trying to achieve. And once you've done that, then it's just a case of building that into your literal day-to-day life. And how can you do it? So I'm constantly writing bits on cards. I mean, I've got quotes and things all around. I mean, I don't even know which one, but they're literally all over my room, just little quotes, little things to implement. I mean, I've got one of my mantra is on my phone on the back screen. And then when I read something about...
Tell us about a quote today that sort of really moved you and thinking that's going to change something that has really caught your eye.
I mean, what have we got? Okay, so one that again recently has been crazy for me is you can perceive what was it exactly? You can either be afraid of the unknown, or you can be excited about the infinite possibilities. So it's you can either fear the unknown of the future, you don't know what's going to happen, you can be scared of it, or you can reframe it and look at it as infinite possibilities and get excited. So for me, that, because the unknown is huge from what I've gone from to where I am now. It's all unknown. As I said, I don't know what I'm doing next week. And I was getting a lot of anxiety, a lot of issues with just like, shit. Sorry. So for me, just reframing that and changing how I thought about it literally changed my life. I mean, you're thinking away anxiety, because anxiety is often fear of the unknown, and if you can just change how you look at it, I mean, mental health is huge. Even subclinical, whatever that means, you need to spend equal time working on that as you do on physical health. And that was another big revelation for me, was you do nutrition, you do training, you get shredded, but unless your head is in the right place, then you're half a human.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a massive thing, that mental health and bodybuilding and the fitness industry. And I think, are they realizing this slowly? No, really. Emil's shaking his head.
Yeah, sorry, no, not in the slightest. I mean, the one of the biggest things I kind of realized was, a lot of people say I'm going to get ripped to get happy, to become happy, because when I get ripped, then XYZ will happen and I'll be happy. And actually, the more ripped people get, the more potentially obsessive and neurotic they get. And actually, when I was morbidly obese, I took my top off, didn't care. And then 2 weeks out from competition, maybe at 6% body fat, I thought I was out of shape and wouldn't take my t-shirt off. It's all in your head. Like, it's all in your head. So yeah, you really, beyond the fitness industry and life, you need to work on that side of things. I mean,
it's interesting because you see these individuals who look amazing, who look fit, even the CrossFit individuals, super fit, doing amazing feats of physical endeavors, and yet they're kind of messed up inside, and that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to, generalize and say that all people who,
of course,
lift it, but I think it's universal, and certainly what I would say is my experience as someone on Instagram who has abs. You look at them and you think they've got their together. They really don't. Most don't. They're just normal people with normal insecurities, probably amplified by the fact that they're on social media with this perceived pressure or constructed pressure on themselves.
I'm interested about your journey into the fitness competition. I mean, tell us about that. That was quite amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that was literally initially a calculated plan. It was, right, I'm leaving medicine to get into fitness. I've got loads of qualifications. I know the science. You know, I've done medical degree, sports science degree, personal training qualifications, worked in a gym, whatever else. But now how do I make people really listen to me? And it was, right, let's get ripped. And me being me, let's take that to the extreme. So let's compete. And it wasn't until I met Sean Stafford, a fitness guy on Instagram, in Cardiff Sports Nutrition, actually, at an open day thing in February of 2015. And he said, you should compete. And I said, okay, let's do this. So then April of that year and May of that year, I competed. And I was actually at the same time revising for anesthetic OSCEs and Vivas. Wow. And that was horrendous. I was driving 2 hours a day to work, working 10-hour days, whatever, up at 4, wow, revising for my exam, training in the morning, driving to work, working, getting home, training again, going to sleep. It needed crazy.
It needed to be done to experience it. I mean, it's a bit like when I did charity work in Iraq. It was horrendous, but yeah, I know what you mean by needed. You just had to sort of get on with it and feel it and understand it, and hopefully that will benefit other people who sort of will go through it as well. And so was there any supplements involved? Was there any steroids involved? Or was it just eating, the chicken and doing lots of hard pushing and pulling?
So for me, because the goal was never to win, as in I didn't care about winning, I had the insight to realize that actually I was looking to appeal to and market to lay people, which meant that if they saw me on stage looking awesome in my tiny pants, then that was enough. Whether I came first, second, 9th or 10th, no one knew or cared. No one knew about the federations. No one knew about what the competitions meant. No one knew about any of that. No one cared. So for me, the vast majority of the effect was just getting to stage. So in that regards, it was just severe, hard, horrible diet. And then all the sort of usual supplements, creatine, protein, multivitamin, vitamin D, omega-3 fish oils. That was pretty much it. And I mean, it wasn't a walk in the park. It was brutal, absolutely savage. But yeah, it was. Yeah.
Gonna do it again?
Oh, absolutely not. So interestingly, so I did it for. I initially did it for this marketing thing, and I did a lot of photo shoots as well because that was the main goal. And then I got caught up in the cycle of doing it. So 2015 I competed, 2016 I competed, 2017 I competed, and the diminishing returns were huge. As in, once you've got a picture of yourself on stage in pants, it loses its effect. So I got my Instagram following in the first 6 or 12 months. After that, it pretty much plateaued because it was nothing new. There was no new story. There was no interest about it. But you get caught up in this cycle of you have to keep doing it. So my business was basically not really doing anything because I was focusing on competing and physique and diet. And then last September, basically everything changed. I finished competing. I went on to a networking event, which escalated basically. And in the last 12 months, everything it's hit an inflection point and it's gone crazy. And that's from totally forgetting about competing, still training, still eating well, but significantly fatter. That's an awful word, but with significantly more body fat than I've ever had. But much less dietary obsession, not focusing on training and focusing on business.
Did you meet a particular person, or did you go to a particular event that sort of changed the way that you?
Yeah, it was a hugely marked change. As in, basically, I did a photo shoot at the end of August, and that was my last shoot ever, actually. And where I was shooting was where a final was being held for a federation. And I looked at the top 5 and I was like, right, I'm going to compete next year and I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it properly. I'm going to win. So I was ready to go, going to start preparation on Monday. I was going on this 4-day event. It was with 6 guys who I'd never met before. It was a total, cold call. Just, do you want to come to this event? There's 6 guys from different industries. We're just going to hang out in Italy. We're going to learn some stuff from each other. And then, that's it, basically. And I was like, all right, cool. But I need to come back a day early. I can only go for 3 days. And I've got stuff to do on Sunday. And then Monday, I've got my meeting to try and work out what I'm going to do next year for competing. So I went to this 3-day event. 2 of the guys were Amazon sellers, e-commerce. One of the guys was a copywriter. So he's like 19. He was reading a book a day, and he's like a millionaire. So he was the one who inspired me for that. There was a software developer, and then there was a dating coach, and I was the fitness person. So the 3 days, 2 of the guys signed up with me for coaching, and they were like, "We've got another event in 3 weeks. It's in Marbella in Spain, and we're going to drive there from Rome, Italy. Do you want to come?" And for me, that was the most terrifying moment of my life. It was against everything I'd ever wanted to do, this sort of impulsive, scary. I had to cancel a few locum shifts. I had to cancel a fitness expo I was speaking at. For me, it was totally against. It was just totally bizarre. But fundamentally, they were basically saying, what you want to do is become a fitness coach. This is going to allow you to do it. So if I had said no at that point, I might as well have given up. So I rationalized. It was the most terrifying 3 weeks of my life, but I said yes. So a 3-day trip turned into a 3-week trip, and that totally changed my mind, changed my outlook. I didn't go to the meeting to compete the year after, and I never even had a thought of competing again.
And it's interesting when you have that fear and yet you do it. It turns into a muscle, and you start thinking, well, actually, fear is. It's bollocks, basically.
It was exactly that. And you know what people say about, well, where do you get these opportunities from? It's not about the opportunities. It's about saying yes. It's about everyone gets opportunities. Not many people say yes. They rationalize it in their head. I so easily could have said, oh, I've got some shifts to do. I've got this thing I have to do. I could have 1,000,000 times over rationalized it and said no. But I didn't, for whatever reason, and I said yes. And as I said, it literally changed my life, because people I met there then suggested other events. I went to visit one of the guys in Bangkok and Bali. I went to Croatia and Romania to further events from that event. I mean, literally everything that's happened to me in the last 12 months started from that event. Every single trip, everything has in some way, you could draw a line back to that event, from the people I met to the people I then got to know to everything. So that me saying yes then was a quantum leap. It was literally from there to exponential, and it's still growing.
Yeah, and it's taking yourself out of the usual environment, and it's sort of that you just took yourself out for one reason or another, and it just sort of changed the way you look at everything.
Changed everything. I mean, prior to that, I'd been associating with medical people, then fitness people, and then business people. And actually, I realized business was where I wanted to be. Fitness, to be successful in the fitness industry, you have to run a business. It's next level. I mean, you can be a coach, you can be a technician, and then you're self-employed. That's great. But if you want to really succeed, you need to run a business, which means you need to take a step back from fitness almost, because a business is universal. So that's what I learned. And then just, having these people around me all the time just kind of kept expanding what I thought or realized was possible. And everything like just kept growing and growing, like just crazy.
Yeah, but like your muscles, mate, they keep going.
Oh, honestly, people, honestly, you can expand your mind and your mindset infinitely. People don't realize that.
Yeah, mate, you got big muscles. How tall are you, mate?
I'm 6'4" or 194 centimeters.
Bloody hell. Yeah, I mean, I'm barely 5'7" with some shoes, so yeah, it's not fair. But hey, it's just muscles. It's just muscles. I mean, it's interesting about business how business maybe gets a bad name, but everything happens through business, literally. The whole world changes, the whole amazing inventions and sort of leaps and bounds in human endeavor come through business. And I had a discussion with a management coach. She does really, really good workshops in Australia. And, you know, doctors need to be so business savvy.
And we're not in the slightest.
Yeah, and, you know, there must be a way of spending, I don't know, 70% business, 30% medicine for medical students. You know, just to give them that sort of sense of creativity and the sense of openness, and, you know, keep adapting.
Yeah.
You know, and keep changing.
I mean, that was one of the big differences, was the creativity, because, you know, medicine, for right or for wrong, is very much guidelines and, you know, specific rules and a very structured approach, and that's fine. But when you step out of that and look in the business world, then literally you can do anything and it will either work or it won't. And if it doesn't work, then that's feedback. And there's no one else to blame. There's no one to complain to. It's literally what you have done hasn't worked.
Yeah.
So you need to improve it. And that is, it's brutal, but it's beautiful as well.
Brutal and beautiful. That's sort of a wonderful way of looking at it. And, you know, we keep pointing the fingers as physicians, don't we? We're always pointing the fingers, and yet we don't point the fingers at ourselves at all, or very few of us do.
I mean, there's a book called Extreme Ownership, and it talks about blame yourself for everything. If someone walks up to you and punches you in the face, blame yourself and work out why. And that, it's an extreme approach, but it's about taking responsibility for everything and for what you can control, and ignoring anything that you can't control. I highly recommend that book for everyone.
So given that we're sort of talking about books, what are these sort of 3 top books you'd advise doctors who are sort of thinking about changing or moving on, or just sort of leaving medicine?
So Mindset by Carol Dweck is literally a Bible. It's you'll read about the concepts from that book in most other business books, and this is the core. This is Carol Dweck, I think she's a PhD. She literally came up with this concept of the growth mindset. So that book is one of the core texts, as I sort of like to talk about it. Apart from that, there's a book called Principles by Ray Dalio. It's about business, and it's about how he grew his business, but more fundamentally than that, he talks about the principles that he governs his life, both individually and then as a team and as a business. But he talks about concepts such as meritocracy. If you're good, then people should have more believability, he calls it. So people have believability because of what they've done, because of what they say, because of what they do, not just arbitrarily because for whatever reason. And, you know, it kind of, he talks about democracy versus meritocracy, and it's super interesting. But he also talks about things like radical transparency and 100% honesty, and all these things are, again, core concepts that you'll hear about in other books and in memes and whatever else. But this is the book where they came from. This is the guy who came up with them. And finally, there's a book called Mind Over Medicine by Lisa Rankin. She's a doctor, MD in America. And she left medicine because it wasn't for her, literally due to burnout, and eventually sort of came around in this big circle and went back to practicing as a healthcare practitioner, having discovered how important the mind was in physical manifestation of disease. And I mean, it talks about sort of, I hate the word holistic, but holistic wellness. So it talks about nutrition and exercise, but also the power of the mind in controlling all of these illnesses. And I'm hugely cynical, and I work in A&E all the time. So, you know, that's my grounding. But that book, I mean, it changed how I viewed. Why'd you hate
holistic, Emil? Come on. How can you hate holistic?
I love the concept. I hate what the word has become.
So what has it become now that you hate about it?
It's kind of become this kind of like airy fairy woo woo kind of holistic medicine is pseudo medicine. And what I perceive holistic to mean is that it covers all the aspects. It's not just you have diabetes, here's some metformin. It's you have diabetes, let's look at what exercise you're doing, let's look at what you're eating, let's look at why you're doing those things, let's look at the anxiety that you're living with day to day, which is causing you to eat crap food and not move. Let's talk about absolutely everything, and let's fix you inside out. The problem is that the modern NHS isn't built to provide this, and that was one of the big reasons where I was like, I'm not fixing people. I'm just giving them, here, come in with an MI, here's have some aspirin, instead of, right, how can we stop you having an MI? Yeah. I mean, medicine's changed so exponentially over the last 40, 50, 60 years, and the NHS now is totally different from when it was before. I do get what you mean, because people use that word loosely, and that's the thing, they use words rather than action. And as you said, it's all about the action, it's all about the results. And a lot of people just using it for sound bites and just sort of getting on the bandwagon. And, I totally understand what you mean by hate. And the same with wellness. I mean, it's become another false god. Whenever you want to sort of see someone, they say, well, it's, providing wellness, whatever that means. And everyone is not well. And people are going through a lot of internal anguish, and but having said that, transparency, I mean, that's another word, isn't it? I mean, it just gets banned. I mean, we were in the NHS and all they talk about is all these values and all these purpose, and it's just words. It totally is words, and then you get that sense of a hypocrisy inside, thinking, well, I can't work in this hypocrisy. I mean, exactly. There's a lot of words and the action. It goes back to implementing. Anyone can read a book. Anyone can say anything, which is why I kind of keep retreating into my shell, because I'm just kind of like, look, I'm not even going to say anything. I'm just going to do. No one needs to know. I'm just going to do. And when people start appearing with results, then they can talk in retrospect about what has been done, or until I produce something, whatever. But I'm not going to say I'm going to do X, Y, Z. I'm going to be radically transparent. I'm going to be whatever. I'm just going to be it and not say it.
Yeah. I mean, that's very powerful, and results speak. If we can go back to sort of goals, is there an ideal goal that works best? Is it sort of a daily thing, a weekly thing, a monthly thing, a yearly thing, or is it just it's just so fluid?
It has to be almost a chain, because you have to visualize what you want in even 50 years time, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years time. You need a long term. Where do you want to be in your life? Because then, and that's going to change, because so many things will change in that time. And then you need to bring it down. So what am I going to do in the next 10 years that's going to achieve my 25-year goal? And then once you've got that, you can break it down. Right, what am I going to do in the next 5 years? What am I going to do in the next 3 years? Or what would it look like in 5 years if I was on track to achieve my goal? And then you keep coming down to 3 years, 1 year, and you just need to regularly review them, just to make sure that they are still aligned with what you actually truly want, and not what other people want you to want. But what you truly fundamentally want. And these goals really shouldn't be, I want these things, I want this much money, I want this car, because that's when you're going to trip up on goals. Like, people say they want a Lamborghini. I promise you, within 3 weeks of having a Lamborghini, you'll be bored of having a Lamborghini. You'll want 3 Lamborghinis, you'll want a yacht, whatever. The material goals are almost irrelevant. It's about, I mean, there's another exercise which I love to do, which I heard from a good friend. It's called the perfect day. If you could visualize the perfect day without any real world limitations, like literally your perfect day, from what you do, what time you wake up, what do you see, what do you smell, where you are in the world, then what do you do, what do you eat for breakfast, then what do you do, then what do you do, and broken down into fine detail. Once you've got that, then you can kind of work out what your goal actually is, because it's often not physical material things. It's things which are actually not that far away and not that difficult to reach.
I mean, it's already here. I mean, I visualized having this podcast this whole day, and that made me really happy. And I knew it was going to be fun, and there you are. It's happened, and it's happening, and it's going to be around for a long time for people to hear. Let's talk about the nutrition. I know that's sort of a big topic, and there's lots of conflicting evidence, and I know you've got you're quite passionate about this, and you've gone through different stages and different evolution in your way, in terms of sort of nutrition and sort of being physically healthy. Could you sort of instill it in some words of wisdom about the secrets of good nutrition?
Yeah, I mean, basically, you want to build the big wide base of the pyramid before you start messing about with, putting the cherry on top or whatever else. So when people are talking about, meal frequency or low carb, high carb, or, having colorful vegetables in their plate or whatever else, they need to think about actually calorie balance. Calorie balance is 70 or 80% of everything, whether you're looking for health, whether you're looking to be crazy shredded. So if you're not looking after calorie balance, then you're literally missing the wood for the trees. After calorie balance, you've kind of got food quality and macronutrient breakdown, so carbs, protein, and fat. But until you're sorting out your calories, like, you could be eating amazing, good quality food and still be unhealthy and overweight and not good. So again, it's missing the wood from the trees. You have to bring it back, sort out calories, and then you can start building on top of that. If body composition is your goal, then calories and protein. Those are the two that will get you 90% of the way there. If health is your goal, then calories and food quality. So by food quality, people laugh at the term clean food, healthy food, but we all know what clean and healthy food is. We're talking single ingredients, vegetables, nuts, seeds, lean meats, if you eat meat, whatever else. But within a calorie balance. So yeah, I mean, that's 90% of nutrition. And you know what? I joke to my clients. I say, look, this isn't about nutrition. I'll tell you everything about nutrition. Eat a little bit less than you need. That's the nutrition part done. Now let's get to the real part. And actually, the real part of nutrition is human behavior, human psychology, habits, and getting people to do these things and follow them and not be stressed by them. So that's the art of nutrition coaching. It's nothing to do with nutrition. That's the easy.
Wow. And sort of, how do we unravel? I mean, I know it's very complicated, and I know it sort of depends on individuals and how they perceive things, and they perceive their essentially self-worth when it comes to food, and the way they eat it, and the sort of behaviors. But are there common themes that you can kind of put your finger on? It's complicated.
It's hugely difficult because I mean, I kind of went from in the NHS treating public health, like trying to treat lots of people, to being like, right, I'm going to focus on individuals, and at an individual level, I can work out what makes them tick, and I can work out what works. I don't envy the task of public health to relay that to everyone. Everyone will go on their own journey, and in the current modern age, all of the information is available out there. There will be something which will click with them, whether it's coaching, whether it's a relative getting ill or whatever else, that will just click, and then they'll get it.
So I mean, that's the importance of coaching, and the importance of having someone who knows what they're doing, and I think being a doctor and someone who's experienced all these different myriad of situations, I think that's sort of really essential. And I think that there needs to be more people like yourself out there. I think that's something to sort of aspire to. Have you ever thought about that? People, sort of more Goliaths out there.
It's the thing is also people need to be willing to change. I don't hard sell my coaching at all. I literally just am there, and people come to me, because if I'm hard selling, then people aren't in the process. If people come to me, then they're at least that stage of change where they're open to it. And if given all of that, then there's no reason for 100% success rates. There's no reason for that not to happen. But when you're starting to look at the masses, then huge percentages are going to drop off very, very quickly for 1,000,001 reasons. And you know what? Ultimately, people need to take responsibility for themselves. There's only so much that we can do as a healthcare system. It's like the information's all there free, the food is all there. We can only do so much. Absolutely.
Now you have a European name. Where's that from?
Yes, it's Serbian. I am entirely Serbian. I was born there. My parents were born there.
When did you come over?
When I was 2.
Wow. Okay.
So my dad came to the UK to train as a doctor. We came over as well, and then I think 2 years after we arrived, the war started in former Yugoslavia. And initially the plan was to go back at some point, and then obviously that happened, so we didn't. And here we are.
Did you ever go back and sort of see family, friends? And
yeah, we've been a few times, but sort of over the years people have left. There's not really much left family wise. There's a few of them are in the UK and Germany. So we've got a nice network, but we go back to Croatia a lot because it's the same language and it has beaches. So that's where I'm going tomorrow. But not so much Serbia.
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing part of the world. The land, and it's very fertile, and lots of beautiful people there as well.
Yeah, no, I need to go back on my travels at some point and have a look at it properly. But it's just been a whirlwind last couple of years.
And you're a professional traveller, aren't you?
The last 12 months has been crazy. You know what? I arbitrarily set myself a goal to be out of the country every month for the next 12 months. I didn't know how I would achieve it. I didn't know, it didn't mean anything, but it's happened. Just however it's happened, it happened. I mean, what month was it? August. I've just come back from Barcelona. I'm going off to Croatia, Spain, then Bali, Thailand. I'm not sitting still.
And where's your best place you've ever been to, and why?
I mean, it was that place in Rome was where everything kind of started. And you know what? I've not explored even a fraction or a percent of the world to be able to make that call. So watch this space.
But I mean, there must be some place that's really sort of, this place is, I'd love to come back here again and again and again and again.
Well, I mean, so Bali will be the second time this year in Bali, and likewise with Thailand. I was in Thailand and Bali both at the beginning of the year, and I'm going back to both now, and I'm probably going to spend the winter in Thailand, to be honest.
Wow, yeah, they're just so welcoming. They're sort of welcoming people.
And if I work online, then it's set up for me to just work out there. I don't need to be in the British winter.
Oh, yeah, tell me about it. I mean, I'm married with kids, and I've got to find a way of uprooting all of these people and spending some time in the sun during the winter period. What have you learnt from travelling to all these countries? What is it that really sticks in your mind?
I mean, you know what? I go to these countries and I don't do the tourist things. I just absorb the culture. I do exactly what I do at home. I eat well, I train, I work every day, and I hang out with good people, and we have very good conversations. It's just doing it in different countries around the world. And, we go to local restaurants, we go to local shops, we walk around the streets, and just that is amazing. And people say, "Oh, did you see X? Did you see Y?" I'm like, no, I'll go back. I'll see it at some point. I'm not worried about that. I can look at it on Google. It's more about the atmosphere, the feel, the people. It's about the people, and the people just happen to be in these places. Far more than specific locations. Like, I've never been a traveler. I didn't do gap years. I went on holidays most of the time, but for the last 3 or 4 years, I haven't been anywhere because I've just been hustling and grinding and all that. And then interestingly, just before I went off to Italy, and which started all this off, my dad said to me, you should go on holiday. And I said, no, I don't need a holiday. I like what I'm doing. And then in the next 12 months, I've been to, I think, 14 different places.
Wow. Were there any crazy moments you thought, shit, I'm going to be in trouble here?
We've mainly stayed out of trouble, to be honest. And you know what? I'm not a danger seeker. I'm not an adrenaline seeker like a load of people. I haven't ventured into South America yet. You hear all these stories. No, I'm not about. I don't know. It's not for me.
But you've been sort of diving in caves and sort of really.
Yeah.
How what you do? What was that like?
Oh, I mean, the experiences are just incredible. You can't even pinpoint just one. They're just. It's all. And it's not even about the experience. It's not even about, again, it's just back to the people. They say you need to surround yourself with, you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with or whatever. And I'm just like relentlessly pursuing these people just to gain.
Well, you can hang out with me if you want. I can be one of your 5.
You know what's really weird? Like I always tend to meet up with friends from the UK in a foreign country, so we need to pick a foreign country and we'll go meet up there.
That sounds really interesting. Yeah, I'm up for that. Traveling for me is actually seeing other people happy. People that you visit, and it's just amazing how they're living their lives. And you think that they're in bad situation, or they're earning $1 a day, or they don't have a pension, whatever, they don't have Wi-Fi, and yet you see the happiness and the energy and the life in them, and that sort of, those are the things that I remember. I mean, working in, being in Iraq, and just seeing the bus driver just being happy and driving his bus, and he's been working for 12 hours, and yet he's got a smile on his face, and these sort of moments really, really makes it for me in terms of traveling and being comfortable. Also the food. I mean, bloody hell, the food's just amazing. How do you count calories with with that kind of food? How do you do that, Emil? How do you sort of...
So interestingly, my goal again from the start was to prove, when I competed, to prove how you could get into shape despite all the excuses. So I was working night shifts, working 12 hours, sleeping 4 hours a night, and still getting into shape. And in the last 12 months, that's expanded into, I can travel really, really regularly and stay in shape. And because of the nature of my clients are living that lifestyle more so than me. They're eternal nomads. So I get a lot more buy-in when I say I'm doing what you're doing, and this is how I'm doing it. So it's the same principles apply. It's you focus down on calories. You don't worry about the fine details. You use various tips and tricks to make sure that you're in a calorie balance over a week. For example, you don't eat crap food. You just eat good food. And ultimately, I believe that people can eat all the food they want without any stress or tension and stay in a healthy shape that they want to be in while eating whatever they want to eat. I think that's possible. I think that's achievable. And certainly that's what I shoot for with my clients.
Yeah, I mean, food is food. A potato is a potato, a chicken's a chicken, and sort of spices and everything else is just sort of extra. But it's doing it, I think. That's the thing, and not having the excuse, not coming up with the excuses.
It's back to what we said, implementing.
Yeah, great. So we will be editing this, so but I don't know whether the editor will edit this out or not. So tell us about your latest project that you're working on.
So there's a few projects. The main one, which has been on social media, is Project Revitalisation, which is an 8-week fat loss transformation. And I hate all those words, but they work. It's a case of giving people or selling people what they want and then giving them what they need. So people love an 8-week transformation, blah, blah, blah. They love a good crash diet, but actually people need to sustain it in the longer term, and they need to learn the habits of how to maintain it. I mean, put it this way, weight loss is really easy. Everyone out there has lost weight on a diet, a couple of pounds over the first week or so. Whether they've kept it on or not, kept it off or not is a different matter, but everyone has lost some weight on some diet. The trick is keeping it off, and that is what we're trying to hack with this plan. So it's 8 weeks, and then afterwards there's an ongoing subscription that you're welcome to take on, and we just keep instilling habits and keep throughout the whole thing. The undercurrent is, how are you going to sustain this? This is a lifestyle. This is the last diet you're ever going to need. This is the beginning of the rest of your life. The
beginning of the end.
Exactly that. I mean, it makes it as flexible as possible while teaching people the principles. So there's these are the rules. There's, look, you can eat anything you want, but this is what's going to happen. If you eat too much, you're not going to lose fat. These are your choices. It needs to be a free choice. It can't be a battle of willpower every time you see food.
And what are the other projects that sort of in the pipeline, and the exciting bits and stuff? Yeah,
I don't know how much I can say about the other one, but basically I signed a contract yesterday for quite a big deal, and I'm going to the States in 2 weeks to finalize it and stuff. But it's going to go, probably by the time this is out, it'll probably be out on social media. But it's quite a big step for me. And this again came from network from the original trip in September. So I can't say a huge amount now, but it'll be very obvious on social media very quickly. And this is why I don't talk about it, because I'm not like, watch this space. It's just like, look, it'll happen and you'll see it and it'll be fine.
You're a man of results, Emil, and that's what it boils down to. It's been an absolute pleasure. I always ask this question right at the end. What's the naughtiest thing you've ever done, Emil?
The naughtiest thing I've ever done? I mean, in my dad's eyes, probably leaving medicine.
Yeah.
You know what was funny? When I initially left and I said, I'm going to do A&E, that was sacrilege. That was the end of the world.
Yeah.
Gone from anesthetics to A&E. Blasphemy. And then that was kind of just the gentle slope into, I'm actually becoming a personal trainer.
You did that on purpose by the sound of it. It's like, right, this is what I need to do.
Yeah. Just break it slowly.
Excellent. That it's been an absolute pleasure. How can people contact you, get hold of you? What's all your stuff?
So my HQ would be Instagram, which is at Project Goliath. But I've got a website now, which is Dr. Emil, so doctoremil.com. And my video, which I put out recently, is mynameis.emil.com. So a few places, they all lead to the same endpoint.
Wonderful. Thank you again, Emil, and may you go from strength to strength. Although you got tons of strength, mate, but hey, we all need more strength.
Never enough strength. Thank you so much.
All right, lovely. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this installment of the Surgical Spirit podcast. For all the latest in the world of surgical spirit, don't forget to follow on Twitter at The Third Eye Doc, and catch me on Facebook at the page The Third Eye Doctor. You can visit the website at www.thethirdeyedoctor.co.uk for more information on the work that I do. And please send us feedback and questions and suggestions for the podcast. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. I've been Dr. Haidar Al-Hakim, and I'll see you next time.